Thank you for joining Ask an Expert for Ask Resource Center. This morning, I will be helping to facilitate. My name is Deb Chido, and I work for Ask Resource Center. I will be the facilitator this morning for Iowa Family Support Network and Children at Home. We have our two presenters I'd like to introduce. Nicole Kock is an intake referral specialist, and she's been with EveryStep for 10 years in other programs and with the Iowa Family Network Children at Home program for 1.5 years. We also have Jennifer Cornell, and she is the intake and referral program coordinator and has been with EveryStep working in the Iowa Family Support Network and Children at Home program for 4 years. This morning, they'll be sharing some information and providing some background around the Iowa Family Support Network and Children at Home. Good morning, ladies.
I am Jennifer Cornell, and so I'm going to talk about the Iowa Family Support Network and then a little bit about the background of the Children at Home program, and then I'll turn it over to Nicole to go in detail about the Children at Home program. So the Iowa Family Support Network is a coordinated intake and referral system. We help families, healthcare providers, and other professionals find information and resources. When we talk about the Iowa Family Support Network, the focus is typically on families with young children ages 0 to 5. Our Children at Home program is for those who are 0 to 22 years of age. Just as I talk about the Iowa Family Support Network, kind of that focus is on that 0 to 5 age range, although we will help anyone who calls to get any resources, we would help them. So some of the main programs that we help connect families and professionals to are the family support services. So those programs that go out into the home, such as Parents as Teachers or Early Head Start. And then our group-based services, so those programs that are in the community or as a group, like parenting classes. And then we connect families who have a concern with their child's development. We help connect them to early access. And then our Children at Home program and the Early Hearing and Detection Intervention program. So we can help families who have a concern for their child's hearing, or maybe the newborn child missed their hearing screen or failed their hearing screen. We can help connect them to the hearing booth in their area. So the Iowa Family Support Network, we are a single point of contact for families and professionals. And we do have a website that's available 24/7, which will be at the end of this slideshow. We'll have our website on there. And then we also have a toll-free phone number that's answered Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. So some of the goals of the Iowa Family Support Network is to make access to services easier for families and helping them navigate the early intervention and family support services. We want to help service providers identify resources they can help give to families. And we also distribute Iowa Family Support Network and early access materials throughout the state, which is available on our website as well to order materials, or you can call us and we send those out free of charge to professionals or families if they would like any brochures on that. And these are some statistics for our fiscal year 20. We had 999 early access referrals and 37 early hearing and detection intervention program referrals. We do send out surveys to families and professionals who contact us. So these are just a couple of examples of a family, what they said on their survey, and then also what provider or professional stated on their survey. This is a screenshot of our website. So we do have there at the first, the early access, where if you hover over it, it brings a drop down list and you can actually make a referral right from our website to early access as well. And then our family support and group based have maps that it has a map of Iowa that you can go and click on a specific county. So if you're in Warren County, you could click on Warren County and see what family support services or group-based services might be available in Warren County. And then our Children at Home application is actually on our website as well. And then we have a state resource directory. So again, trying to find any resources or support, that's a really great area to go to that you can type in your zip code. You can search by looking up food resources or financial resources. And then we also have our child development tab. And so that talks about milestones. So at 2 months, 4 months, 2 years old, kind of what those developmental milestones would be and what to look for. And we have an events page section here so that we try to put events throughout the whole state of Iowa that are maybe family-friendly events or maybe a training for professionals. And then we have our resources tab, which is where you can find our materials on there to actually order some materials that we would mail out. So that was about the Iowa Family Support Network. And now I'll talk about the Children at Home program, a little bit about the background and what that is. So the Children at Home program is for families who have a child with a disability, where we may be able to help pay for items or services that they need in order to stay in the family home, to function more independently, and increase their integration into the community. We receive our funding from the Iowa Department of Public Health, who receives their funding from the Iowa Department of Human Services. And so in 2016 is when Iowa Family Support Network took on the Children at Home program. So the Children at Home program came to Iowa Family Support Network as Iowa Family Support Network already covered all 99 counties in Iowa, and we were already an intake and referral system. So the Children at Home program was able to come into the Iowa Family Support Network because previously the Children at Home program was only operating in 23 counties in Iowa. So it was not available in all 99 counties in Iowa prior to 2016. And then in 2016, when Iowa Family Support Network received it, we rolled it out to all 99 counties in Iowa. So previously, when it was in the 23 counties, there were 8 different contractors that covered 1 to 4 counties. So now there's only the one contractor for the Children at Home program. When it was in the 23 counties and had the different contractors, the operation and delivery varied between the contractors. So each county was a little different depending on the contractors. So what would be approved or the application process was different depending on that contractor. So with the Iowa Family Support Network, we made that consistent throughout when we rolled it out to all 99 counties. So there's just one application for all 99 counties. So for the Children at Home program, there are 4 eligibility requirements. And now I'm going to let Nicole kind of take over and talk about that.
Thank you, Jennifer. Yes, my name is Nicole Kock, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the eligibility for our Children at Home program. To be eligible for this program, a family must reside in the state of Iowa. The family must include a child or an individual with a disability who is under 22 years of age. And that family has to express an intent for that child to remain in the family's home. That's a big part of our program, is wanting to help families keep their family member in the home. The last requirement that we have for the Children at Home program is an income requirement. The family's net taxable income must be below $60,000. Again, that is the net taxable income for the family under $60,000. So our application for our program has 4 separate parts. The first section is going to be family demographics, just the family's information, address, contact information, etc. The next section is the income information to help decide whether the family qualifies for the income guideline of net taxable income under $60,000. We would need documents to be submitted from the family to verify that, and that can be in the form of a tax document, the most recent filed tax document for that family. If the family does not file taxes, we do have some other documents that we can accept in order to verify that they do qualify for the income guideline. The next section would be the certification of disability. So for this eligibility requirement, if a child is on a waiver program or Social Security, then we don't need any additional information to certify the child or the individual's disability. If that child or individual is not receiving any waiver services or Social Security income, then they will need a professional to sign off just to certify that that individual does in fact have a disability. And then we have the application for funds section. This particular section is where the family will specify the item or service that they are looking for our program to provide funding for or to pay for. And then the professional or a provider in that family or child's life will write a description of how that particular item or service relates to that child's disability and supporting the idea that that individual remain in the home as well. So the focus of our funding, as we've talked about a few different times, the intent of the program is to keep that child in their home and to help provide them with services or items that relate to their disability. And so as our staff are reviewing applications, we are really tasked with ensuring that the child does in fact have a disability and that the item or service that the family is requesting relates to that disability. Again, with the intent of keeping that family or keeping that individual or child in the home. In terms of funding for each family, we have a goal to approve a minimum of $700 per eligible child within the funding year or the fiscal year. Again, that's a minimum of $700 per eligible child per family. We monitor our funds on a monthly basis. And so if we have a family who is requesting an item or service that is above the $700 minimum limit, then we certainly can look at still providing funding for that item or service. For those larger amounts that are above and beyond the $700, we consult with our program manager, director, and our funders for approval for that exception to go above and beyond that. It is important to note that we can and do make exceptions to that $700 limit. So we really encourage families that even though it may be a more expensive item for potentially a piece of equipment or something like that, we really encourage them to submit that need because we can and do make exceptions, and we want to do our best to help meet that family's need. So we have several different categories of items or services that we can provide funding for. One of those is equipment. We often approve funding for adaptive equipment for children. It could be a therapeutic piece of equipment, a functional piece of equipment. Technology is really big. Oftentimes, we might have an individual who is not verbal or who doesn't communicate verbally with their family, and so maybe a piece of technology will help assist in that. You can see the picture of that sweet little girl on the slide, and that's an example. That particular gait trainer or piece of equipment that it is another example of the adaptive equipment that we can help provide funding for families. Another category includes therapy, and inclusion activities. This is a large chunk of our funding is spent in this category as well. Such services include water therapy, equine or horse therapy, music therapy, occupational physical therapy, speech therapy, and the big ones here are camps and classes that help keep these children and individuals with their peers and included in activities. We also have parent or caregiver education and respite and adaptive childcare. So if a family has a camp that they attend every year, maybe it's a camp about cochlear implants. And so that family can apply to have our funding help pay for or pay toward that family's camp experience. We do a lot of respite care funding for families that need that caregiver break. Another category is the personal care or nutrition category. So we've got soaps, cleaners, supplements, and those particular items there as well. Another category, medical related expenses. So any medical equipment that is not covered by insurance, we can take a look at possibly providing funding for. Medical alert jewelry is another option that we've paid for. And then there's transportation and travel. So if a family is attending a medical appointment or a camp or some other sort of need, then we can look at potentially helping fund that hotel stay, a travel stipend, including airfare, mileage, and those types of things. There are some categories that will not be considered for funding. One of the big ones is just basic child items, clothes, shoes, school supplies, etc. Basic child items like clothes, shoes, and school supplies are not items that we can provide funding for through our program. Other basic living expenses such as rent or utilities are something that we are not able to provide funding for. And then childcare for a child age 12 or younger is also another category that we do not provide funding for. Some other categories that we do not consider for funding are adoption or guardian costs, costs that are incurred from illegal activities like court costs and fines. Certainly firearms and weapons of any kind we will not provide funding for. Also, we cannot provide funding for insurance deductibles and copays for families unless it's a piece of medical equipment that insurance is not able to pay for. We could look at potentially providing funding. We can't provide funding for phones or any repairs of vehicles, but one caveat to that is if a family needs a vehicle modification for a child or an individual's disability, we can certainly look at providing funding for that, as modification or adaptation of vehicles is something we can pay for. So it's important to note that while our funds can't be directed toward basic living and child expenses, as a part of our broader function, we will certainly help families locate other resources other than our program for any needs that they might have for those items or services. Here are just some statistics on our program for the Children at Home program. Last year in fiscal year 20, we served 638 children, and the number of families served were 466. So as you can notice, some families have multiple children that take advantage of our program. We also send out surveys to our Children at Home families, and this is one of the responses we got back. This program has been extremely helpful to our family. We have 4 children with varying degrees of special needs, and with the help of the Children at Home program, we've been able to make our home safer for our children by adding additional locks to keep them out of items that could be dangerous. And we've added a fence so that they can play safely in the backyard without worry of having them wander away. We've also been able to have our children participate in inclusive activities that we would not be able to afford otherwise, that have helped our children with their interactions in the community. And that's from a family in Black Hawk County. Here's a response from a family in Clinton County. They say, "Thank you so much for this program. We used funds for respite stays at Camp Courageous, and our child came home more compassionate and confident, and we got some rest." And then lastly, here's a response from a Floyd County family. "This is a program that has made more things possible for me being a single mom of 2 children with autism. One of our biggest issues was safety, and they made it possible to finish closing in our yard, making it less likely for another elopement to happen." We love hearing that feedback. This is just some basic contact information for our program. We have an 800 number. You can email us with any needs or questions that you might have. And then we have our website listed down below. We welcome any questions or inquiries, and we're happy to help families locate the application and fill it out.
So thank you. Great information, and it looks like great resources for families. So a couple of questions. So if a family's struggling with filling out the application, are there support systems there to help them be able to walk through that process?
Yes, again, with our phone number here or email, families can definitely call us. We can walk through the application with them and kind of talk about what steps to do. And so while you can find the application on our website, a lot of families may not have access to a printer, and we can definitely mail an application to families. Any of the paperwork that's needed, we can mail that to them.
We've had another question come up. So do you provide any kind of support for translating if a family calls that doesn't, their primary language is not English?
Yes, we do have a bilingual staff who also speaks Spanish. So we have Spanish and English staff. And then through EveryStep, we have access to our interpreters that, again, we can have our interpreter call and we can kind of walk through the application with families for them.
Okay, so generally, can you give a sense for families once an application gets started? Is it months, or do they hear within a pretty short turnaround of time?
They would hear from us within usually a week to 2 weeks, depending on when they submit their application. So they would hear from us. Now, whether we can actually approve the application right away, that's going to depend if everything was included in the application. So if everything was included in the application, we have everything we need, usually we can make that really quick. However, sometimes, families might forget to submit a copy of their tax form. So then, we let the family know what we're missing, what we need, and then, it's kind of that little bit of back and forth, having families get that information to us.
So I heard you speak to 99 counties that you now have resources in every county. So would a family be connected to that person in that county for that connection as they move this work forward or this support forward?
For the Children at Home program, we don't actually have staff in specific counties. We are all based out of Polk County, but that support would be over the phone or by email that we would help them.
All right. Well, thank you very much. That's great information and certainly a great resource for families. And I want to really encourage our families to use those resources. It sounds like that you guys really want to help support kids and what their needs are. So that's great. Again, thank you, Nicole and Jennifer, for sharing your expertise. And thanks for joining Ask an Expert at Ask Resource Center.